All right. So again, the topic teamwork. Let's have a meditation to start. Taking a moment to ensure the body is comfortable, no tension anywhere. And just for a moment, observing the wonder of this physical body, observing the lungs breathing, the heart beating, the blood pumping, multiple systems operating in the body, and how they all work together. They each have their own speciality. The lungs, the heart, the blood, and yet how well they work together. The heart ensuring that that oxygenated blood is carried through the body. All working together as a team. And if they didn't work together, what would happen to the body? And then I take my focus deeper, looking at the non-physical aspects of life, those capacities that are carried within the self, thinking, feeling, deciding, remembering. Are they working together? Each having their own speciality. Sometimes we talk about the head and the heart. Are they in harmony? Do my memories, my past experiences take me in one direction, while perhaps my conscience takes me in another? My hopes, dreams, and visions in a different direction from the two. Are all of my subtle capacities working together? When they do, there is peace, there is power, there is well-being. When there is inner harmony, I'm able to harmonize with others and with my world. I have to check inside first before I can comment on what's going on outside. Om Shanti. So welcome again to Inner Fitness, Part 2, Teamwork. We'll see where this goes. Maybe it'll go in a different direction again. But it's an interesting topic and so critical. We talked a little bit about the physical ideas of teamwork, but I was even just thinking physically about something very basic, which is the body. So we're going to start with a little exercise. I know you enjoy these moments. We're going to get you to stand up. Hopefully you can still hear the voice. All we're going to ask you to do is walk around. So even if you can't hear me, it's okay. Just make sure you come back. Just, take a few paces around your space safely. Just walk around like you naturally do. Just walk. And ideally, make sure you're not holding your hands. Let your arms be free so that they can do what they naturally want to do. And just observing what's going on physically with the body. We never really think about it. Usually when we're walking, we're absorbed in other things. But just focus on what is the body doing as it's walking around, as I'm walking. It's like walking a dog. What am I doing as I walk the body around? And then come on back to your seat if you can hear me. If not, hopefully you'll eventually come back. All right. So what did you observe physically, just physically, as you watched the body while you were walking it around? What did you observe, if anything? There's Do you have a mic? Okay. There's some sharing, but I'm the only one who's hearing, so we'll see if we can fix that.
I don't want to focus on it, but there was pain.
Sorry, you seem to be muted. Can you...
Me? I'm muted?
Or I need to unmute. No, why is there a mute button on you? What's going on? I need to unmute you.
Well, there'll be a mute button there, but I'm using yours.
Oh, okay. Okay. Go ahead. Yes.
There was pain, and that was distracting the unity of other things. So there wasn't feeling like there was teamwork.
No. There was some lack of well-being as you were walking around. Very good. Well, it's not very good, but good observation. Well done. Anything else anyone wants to share?
I feel like I'm walking, I'm off. I have a little bit of left lower back pain, so I'm kind of wobbly and a little bit of, imbalance. So I think I'm favoring more my left leg when I walk.
Right.
So, and that's pretty much dominant how my body feels. So,
Right. It's interesting, isn't it? We all have these interesting things where there isn't that kind of harmony or symmetry sometimes, or it's just not quite, it deeply affects. In fact, we often have, and I know Pauline will be very well versed in this referred pain, where there might be some genesis of pain somewhere in the body, maybe a tight hamstring, but it will refer to other parts of the body because they're so integrated. So we start to see lower back, we start to see gait imbalance, which is going to refer to other parts of the body, and the story goes on. So it's remarkably interconnected. And there's something even very, very basic that always intrigued me. So when we're walking, the feet are going right, left. Without thinking about it, you'll notice that the opposite arm to the leg that's leading will swing forward, counterbalance, normally. So when we're not thinking about it, and I could see Nora and I saw a little bit of Pauline, I saw that it happened very naturally. It happens without thought. This is quite funny, that when people have to think about it, they do this weird thing where they start walking like this. The same arm as the leg going forward, and it's just wonky. But normally, it's this beautiful dance, this incredible teamwork with all of the skeleton, understanding momentum and what needs to happen with the levers. So the body, when it's not injured, when it doesn't have these asymmetries, imbalances, and injuries, it is this incredible demonstration of teamwork as it moves. It just naturally knows what to do, and it's remarkable. And it's not like the right foot's going forward and the left arm is going forward and the right foot says, "Hey, left arm, what are you doing? What are you doing? Can't you see that this is right time? This is right time. Should be the right arm going forward. Why is the left arm going? What are you doing? Do you know what you're doing? Do those arms know what they're doing? They're doing the exact opposite thing. And meanwhile, the left arm's saying, right foot, what are you doing? Can't you see that it's left? Left should be. So there's a lot of respect, if you will, as the body operates. And the thing that strikes me so much about teamwork, both whether it's internally or I think we were talking a lot about various individuals brought together, is this deep respect that needs to happen between the different members of the team. And this idea that I can't expect everyone to do what I'm doing or to do it the way that I would do it. That is not what teamwork is. So we had the example last week of, say, the soccer or the basketball team. Everyone has their position, and if they don't hold their position, it's going to be quite tragic for the strategy of the game. So this kind of respect for everyone on the team. And where does that respect come from? Where am I going to generate that natural capacity, not having to work hard, but effortless, this very natural capacity to have respect for everyone else on the team? Where is that going to come from?
I feel you really have to know your part. Like you'd have to be really comfortable with it. I guess there's that connection between self-respect, which is recently I was thinking about when respect means to see yourself. But it can't really be something that's just intellectual. It does feel like then if you know your part, even in an actual athletic game or something, you know your position, you know your part, and you're not going to start playing somebody else's.
I always used to find it interesting in a game like baseball, where you have the pitcher, the catcher, and you have the baseman, and you have the outfielders. And how much action do you think those outfielders see compared to the pitcher? Not as much, let me tell you. Sometimes the outfielders do nothing in an inning. One of them might catch a ball or something, but nothing might happen, whereas the pitcher's non-stop, right? So very, very, but the pitcher is like, he has to know his team has his back. Because if he pitches a ball and it's kicked up into a fly and he hopes that someone out there is going to catch it and save that play, if you will, get the out. So the reliance, the respect, there's never that sense of, I really respect what they're doing. I have to be very, very powerful in my part, and we call that self-respect. And then it's very, very easy for me, no matter how big or small that part might be, for them to be able to support each other and have equal vision. I remember probably one of the most famous symbols of teamwork that we often bring forward is the idea of the orchestra. And I remember when I was young, taken to the orchestra many times, the symphony, and the instruments I really liked was the triangle. The triangle and the cymbal. Probably because I thought, I think I could play that. I don't think I can do any of the other things. But I think I can do the triangle. That looks like manageable. That looks like good. I can do that. And I used to think, because, the triangle just is a ting every once in a while. But I used to sit there and say, okay, what would this musical piece be like without the triangle? And I'd listen and try to imagine what it would be like without the triangle. Because some might say, it's such a simple, easy part. Anyone can do it. It's hardly doing anything. Every once in a blue moon, I thought it would be a completely, and I knew it took skill in my heart. I knew that I was just hopeful in thinking I could play that part. I knew there was skill involved. But I thought the piece would be completely different without that little ting at the perfect moment every time. And so how much respect there must be, the conductor must have for all the different players, and that relies so much on them being comfortable in their part. And so I was remembering when the little bit of choral work, has anyone ever had to sing choral work? So I was horrible at it. I'd like to try now after doing some spirituality. I'd like to see what but I was so, because I couldn't hold my own. I'd always start straying to someone else's part. And it was very hard for me to hold my own. And I was always around very strong singers. And I knew in my heart that this wasn't just about singing, that this was deeper. This was about being very comfortable in one's own part, to be able to listen to the others, but hold one's own part. And I was just appreciating that earlier today when we were listening to some harmonizing that was going on. And I just was so appreciating, it's this group we were listening to of 7 singers, and they each have a very different voice. And that's, without becoming a chorus, that's quite a large number of singers to balance out. And whenever they sing a piece, they make sure that everyone gets to have their speciality shine. They always make sure. But I was just so fascinated by how they harmonize and how they respect each other, and therefore the sum is much greater than the parts. But I always found this such an interesting challenge of, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to hold my own, and sure enough, I'm straying into someone else. I'm singing along with someone else. So to be able to, it is absolutely impossible. No matter how much my heart wants to, it is impossible to have those pure feelings, those respectful feelings that is the foundation of a team without self-respect. So in spirituality, we have this saying of charity begins at home, that if I really want to extend that kind of charity, that kind of respect to others, I have to have a good stock of it inside. We've never heard really, except for maybe in Calgary, and we're so unique in so many ways, but usually it's the wealthy that are able to give because they have money that they can give. It's very odd for the poor to be giving donations. So the idea that I cannot contribute what I don't have. So as much as in my heart, or rather my head, I know that I should be gracious and I should respect, it's going to be a lot of challenge for the heart to generate those feelings if I don't have a stock. So I need to focus, for the sake of being able to do that, I need to focus on developing that deep respect for the self. And I know that was talked about last week with teamwork as well. So often, it just gets worse and worse, because so often we try to generate. What is the classic way we try to generate a sense of having, respect in the self? What's the classic way we do it? I see this a lot where I am. Some are very overt about it. They admit they're doing that, and others, I don't even know if they're aware. But what's the usual way that we try to feel valuable without spirituality? What's the usual way we go at it? There's many things that can fall. This month we're remembering Daddy Genki, because unbelievably it was a year ago, almost a year, it was March 27th, that she, as we say, left the body, moved on to her next part, rebirth. And so we're remembering her a lot. And one thing she used to say a lot is to be very cautious or very attentive if any feelings of jealousy or competition arise. And she was extremely honest, very honest soul. So she was, honest means very sensitive to how ego works. She was an expert not because she had any herself, but she was an expert on understanding the ways and means of ego. And ego is the opposite of self-respect, although it often tries to dress up as self-respect. It tries to deceive us. And so very often we try to develop a sense of self-worth through doing things, and specifically what my doing looks like relative to others' doings. So this jealousy or competition arises. So you can see that this will be an exact opposite of what I'm trying to do on a team. But on a team, it's about cooperation, it's about egoless, it's about humility, really working together, not trying to... Have you ever seen this idea of a team where they're each competing with each other within the team? It's a big mess. I have experienced it, and it really doesn't go well. So this idea of really, not trying to develop one's sense of worth relative to something or someone outside. Really bad idea if trying to develop self-respect. And we very often do try to develop it relative to things outside. It's going to create, because it's not the real thing, I won't be able to give the real thing. So how can I develop self-respect so that I can contribute respect to the team? How do I develop that self-respect? Charity begins at home. How do I cultivate that self-respect? This to me is the big question within every single human being. Do they value themselves not for the wrong reasons, but for the right reasons? How do I do that? True self-respect.
That sense of value really has to be the experience of me, like the soul. It can't even be intellectual. And I think maybe sometimes it can get quite subtle, some of the deception. And yeah, I think that's all I can share about that.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? How do I cultivate true self-respect? Pauline.
I think having an understanding about yourself, knowing your purpose in life, and having that understanding of yourself, you're able to understand others and accept them of who they are, because you understand yourself, you accept, who you are, and your purpose. So I think having that deep understanding.
Lovely. Yeah, perhaps the most powerful part of the term self-respect is the word self. So the object of the respect is the self. So do I even know what self means? And I'm not saying that to completely undermine any trust in the self, but we can get really mixed up on what self, who I am, if you will, because we've again created such a sense of self that's based on externals, including the body. Right? The body is temporary. And, as we've shared on past occasions, there can be so many changes to the body. I was very touched yesterday. A note was sent out within the Brahma Kumari's family because one of the sisters in the Toronto, the GTA area, Judith was her name, she left the body on the 3rd of March. And a couple of stories about this soul was shared with me, but one of the stories is that she, due to a medical crisis, really, she had to get both legs amputated. Now, if we think we're the body, and we've just cut off a couple of pieces of the body, what does that mean about the self if I think I am the body? Am I like missing bits of myself now? Doesn't really make sense, does it? We tend not to think that someone who has had an amputation is any less. So, am I really the body? Or am I just occupying the body, using the body to express through, but it's not really me? It's probably the deepest thing that we need to think about. It's the entry point to spirituality. I really need to be clear on this question of who am I? Because everything rolls out from that. If I think I'm the body, then I think certain other people are my relatives. It's all by virtue of the body. I think certain things belong to me. So I really have to get that first kind of thing clear. Am I the body? And once I start to explore that relationship with the body, it kind of throws things wide open, really reframes or transforms this word self or I. Who am I having respect for? Who is the self? And so in spirituality, we explore this idea that, okay, I'm not temporary things like the body or like a job or even a skill set. You know, I hear people say, you know, oh, I can't dance, I can't draw, and these are just skill sets. They're, you know, it gets into things called acquired sanskars. They're temporary things. Really want to have a, you know, I remember once, I think Nora knows, it was one year, it was a very sweet celebration, and there was a message from Daddy Janky, and I think someone had fed her some information saying, okay, Judy's the one who does this. She says, oh yes, I've heard that you do graphic design, and she giggled and she says, I can't do anything. I can't do any of that stuff. You know, this is, and I'm sitting there going, okay, but the things that you can do. And I realized at that point, she had such a sweet way of giving lessons, quite frankly. It's like, those are all passing things. All passing things. One day I might lose my eyesight, not able to do graphic design anymore. If I think I am a graphic designer or a dancer, I don't know how many dancers I know that have been injured and gone into depression because they think they are. That's who I am. I'm a dancer. It's like, no, you're much more than that. Nora, you're going to share something.
I think that's why it's interesting, you know, I resonate with what Pauline was sharing about the understanding how deep is that experience of my sense of self.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure all of us have been in that experience where you're grappling, you don't want to compare. But I remember I always like using that metaphor when you're driving. You know, you have to go across, you have to go through those traffic lights. Others have to turn to a ramp because they're going a different direction. You don't compare, you're not jealous at that time. And that's a nice metaphor. But we like to be able to feel like I know where I'm going, like really experience that. Like, so for Daddy Janky, we know her legacy of what she had to go through. That's what has touched me these last few days, of what that soul had to go through to have such a stage that, you know, she can really respect her part. I think that maybe that's the gap that we're all trying to close.
Yeah, it's no small thing. I think we know these things in our head, but it's very powerful when you actually see souls who have practically gone through it. And they're easily dismissed because in our head, you know, we're so clever and we say, oh no, I get it, that, you know, I gotta love myself for the right reasons, I got it, but we don't actually do it. And it's a remarkable inner journey to get there. It's no small thing. I think I've seen a handful of souls when I look at the daddies and dadas, the elder students of this organization, that really have gone there. And what they've gone through, I don't know. And I know they would never, there is 0% possibility they would have gotten to what we call the egoless state or the full self-respect. They never, I am not over-exaggerating when I say this, 0% possibility they'd get there without God. Absolutely zero. Pauline, go ahead.
So it's very interesting because earlier this morning I was listening to one of the spiritual talks. Sorry, can you hear me?
I can, sorry. I just have dry throat. Keep going. Mm,
So the speaker said that we are not this body,
mm,
but our body is within us.
mm,
So oftentimes we are so attached, the way we look, the way and then I was doing my workout this morning and just like, oh, I'm just so blessed that I can jump, I can do push-ups. But what if God take away one of my legs? So what will happen?
mm,
So that automatically gave me a reason that okay, this is just physical, and no matter what happened, if I lost my feet or one of my limb, I am still blessed because I have one leg.
mm,
And anyway, the body will just is perishable. So I think that gives me a thought of not to be attached too much to my physical body, but to work on my inner, because tomorrow I may wake up without a limb, or I cannot walk. So
mhm.
each morning I just want to be thankful of what I can do. And
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah,
very important. And yeah,
absolutely. And there was a
so
word that, sorry, Pauline.
no. So it just reminded me of that talk that you say that we are not this body. So it just actually since this morning until now, it just like, yeah, it's definitely correct. And then you just mention it that and then it reminds me that I shouldn't be too much attached with my physical body, and that's not very important why we are here.
Yeah, and it's not to. Sometimes we say not attached to the body, and of course we're in one, and wow, the amazing things we can do through it. But the idea that I get my sense of value from it is when things start to go downhill quite quickly, and to be able to make that journey. And there was a word that you used in your sharing earlier, which was to know your purpose, or sometimes we use the word our part. And there's a difference between, and it's a bit semantics, so it's getting into the definition behind the words so we don't get caught up in the words, but between a role and a part. And this idea that ego is very much connected to roles. Ego really flourishes in roles. I remember once a soul coming to me and say, oh, by the way, if you ever need this done, just come to me because that's what I do. That's my role. I was thinking, oh, what if I don't come to you? Or, oh, that they really were getting a sense of their self, a sense of their value through that role. And this happens very easily. Part is quite incognito. So I want you to imagine there's a team, and on the team, there is someone on the team who's identified very overtly as the role of leader. So they are given that role. They make the presidency, or they are overtly identified as the leader. They have that title or role. You can visualize that kind of team. But as might happen, perhaps you've experienced that you start to notice that someone else starts to play the part of the leader. Maybe not be the one who's identified in the role, but they start to play that part in terms of supporting and guiding the team. And the part is played according to the qualities in the self. So we know people might be in the role, but they're not quite bringing forth the qualities that demonstrate that role in a healthy way, right? So someone could be in the role of leader and be quite, due to their own insecurity or lack of self-respect, be quite bossy, manipulative, domineering. And that isn't going to bring out it might look like it's getting results in the short term, but that team starts to kind of fall apart. It doesn't have longevity. And there might be someone else who's almost maternal on the team. They don't focus on outcomes or results or products. They focus a lot on support, nurturing, compassion, understanding. They're that presence. It's the qualities they have. They don't have the role of leader, but they're playing that part. This was quite common in many households where kind of the mother is behind the scenes, kind of really holding the household together. Yes, the father might be bringing in the money, but the mother is really sustaining, right? And it has nothing to do with gender, but who's slotted into those different parts. So with role, this is something where ego gets very excited when they're given a role. I remember working in an organization, and it was the design, the communications, and I could almost count to the second when a new staff was hired and when they would come to me and say, "Can I order some business cards with my name on it?" I could almost tell when that was going to happen and how important it was to them. It was quite sad because most of the time it all went to waste. They rarely use business cards these days, but they wanted that card with their name and title on it. And, this sort of various external forms of wanting to be valued that undermine the end destination of a healthy team because they're cutting off that possibility of developing self-respect. It's not to say you shouldn't have titles or any of that. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm not deriving my sense of value from those things. I can keep doing push-ups, I can keep holding positions, everything, but I'm not deriving my sense of value. It comes and goes. It's all temporary. Comes and goes. So obviously my sense of value has to be something timeless and that I carry with me, something inside of me, the being. Not the body, but me, the being. And do we really? This is why I said that I don't think they could have had. When we follow the storyline of any of these original students of the Brahma Kumaris, it's always the same formula. Most of them it's didn't finish school, came to the organization, walked away from some of them very wealthy families. This idea of renunciation or surrender, if you will, but it wasn't that. On the surface it looked like that, but internally they recognized something. They recognized the source of self-respect. What a lucky soul to recognize the source of self-respect. The term we use, of course, is God, but even deeper than that, it's truth. The truth will set you free. God simply is an expresser of the truth, able to bring the truth. That's really the function of God, is to protect the truth. But, it's I have to work with the truth and to know that's the key to unlock self-respect. Truth is what is eternal. So when I say they never could have gotten there without God, it's but where they got to. I mean, we just saw so many pictures of Daddy Janki. It's just, I know they've made, we within the organization have made movies, but one day I'm sure they're going to make a blockbuster out of this because it's an absolutely remarkable story. Absolutely inspiring, from nothing, less than nothing. I mean, so much abuse, so little sense of amounting to anything, but deep, I mean, from the age of what, 2? Expressing a deep love for God. All they wanted. And it was very interesting, the love for God. They wanted to know God as he was and what he was. So she wasn't content with what the gurus would tell her. She was very clear that of what she felt the truth, the purpose of truth. We say God is truth. So the purpose of truth is to uplift the soul, is to benefit the soul, not to make the soul feel bad or to have the soul bow down in shame. That is not the purpose of truth or God. So she was very picky. She really was holding out for true introduction to God. This started from a very young age at 2. And so she got, I think, 1 or 2 years of schooling, very, very young. She left school. You'd never know it. One of the clips we saw was her speaking perfect English at the United Nations. And English is not at all her language. Brilliant, brilliant soul. Brilliant. But she left school after, 2, 3 years. Just, she was adamant. Why am I wasting my time? Can you imagine this little 5-year-old or whatever, 8-year-old? I want to go and study with the gurus, or I want to find God. So I'm out of here. So I don't know. Her parents must have been pretty amazing. But from this crazy beginning, through so many challenges, and then we see the pictures at the end, towards the last 2 decades of her life, every, I'd say, important personality on this planet, in the realm especially of religion or spirituality, has had contact with Daddy Genki and bowed their head in deep respect. Whether it's Chopra or the Pope or Mother Teresa or the President or whatever, you have pictures of them all with Daddy Genki. And she's this wee little thing, and she's so humble, What an incredible life. And all of that happened on this deep exchange of respect between her and God. She had profound respect for God, and she also experienced, and this is the secret key, God's respect for her. God saw her as a soul, not even as Daddy Genki, just as a soul. And to see the beauty of the soul, to experience someone looking at you with so much recognition, is incredibly transformative. And I often think that's the most powerful part to play on a team, is how we look at each other. If you want to be a valuable contributor on a team, cultivate this vision of seeing others in a very deep, eternal, and timeless way. With this organization, they were young girls and young people. There were a few boys, but mostly young Kumaris when they came. And probably the first thing that they practiced was this idea of seeing themselves as a soul and seeing others as souls. We call this spiritual drishti. This is how they became a team. They became very spiritually connected. They saw each other in this eternal way as souls, not the bodies, but as souls. And it's amazing as they grew up how well they operate. I've never seen such a powerful team in my life. They each were very different, but the way that they really respected and saw each other is so powerful. I was remembering recently a time when one of the elder sisters, Chandramani, Daddy Chandramani, when she left the body suddenly, and Daddy Genki was there, and they'd gone through so much, but had this deep, deep spiritual connection. And I remember watching Daddy Genki that morning when she announced it, and the whole day. Of course, we're all watching how she would act under this very extreme. And what I remember feeling was that Daddy Genki was stable, unshakable, very powerful, guiding force through this very challenging moment. But she was deeply affected. Like, what an incredible relationship these souls, such a respectful relationship. She understood that soul had taken rebirth, they were fine, she understood all of that. But they had a very unique spiritual bond as a team through these exercises they would do of seeing each other as souls. It's the highest vision of respect you can have for another being. We very often look at someone and say, oh, you're physically so beautiful, and we respect them for that reason, and that doesn't even make sense. Do we disrespect someone else? And what is beauty? It's my idea of beauty. I mean, the whole thing is crazy. But to recognize someone at such a deep level, their eternal state, and we're then saying, as children of God, the qualities that must be in each soul. This is equality. This is true equality. When my eyes can see each other, each person in such a respectful way. And sometimes we say, I'm working with someone and they have no nice qualities. They're just not nice. Everyone says so. And I remember, I can hear her words in my ear. I can remember Daddy Janky saying, everybody has a speciality. Every single soul has a speciality. Every single one. We're so quick to see what's wrong. We would not want anyone else to have that vision on us, but we're very quick to see it on others, what's wrong with them, and not really looking for that jewel, what's right, and what our vision is on ourselves. It's been said, really, the only way to cultivate true respect for the self is to see oneself as God would see me. This is really the only way. So once I start to create that very unique, timeless, extremely forgiving sense of self-respect, then very naturally, because I've done it so much on the self, it will start to happen with others, and you'll be able to see others, whatever way they're acting, whatever's going on, you will start to see them in this very pure, timeless way. And it's amazing how souls respond to vision. Have you had someone look at you in a judging or critical way? Have you ever had that happen to you? How did it make you feel? Did you perform at your best? Did you feel inspired to perform at your best? Kind of put you on the defensive, didn't it? It kind of made you feel uncertain. What about when someone has a very loving, appreciative vision on you, when they have lots of confidence in you? They look at you that way. How does that make you feel? Inspired to do your best. It's quite natural. I've shared it so many times, I won't share it this time, but this was my experience with my grade 1 teacher, Mrs. Tillotson, who naturally had this vision, equal vision on all of us. I swear she was seeing us as souls without even knowing it. I was very fortunate to have her during those foundation years, those very formative years. And she had such a vision of respect on us as little 6-year-olds, and she was 60 plus. And I remember what that brought out in us. So this is a very valuable tool on a team. People don't need to be doing things the same way as I'm doing it. People don't need to be on the same timelines. People can make mistakes. It's okay. I have to maintain that vision. This is the most powerful part one can play. I'll end by saying I know it's been shared many times with Daddy Janky that souls would say, why don't you give up on that soul? Why do you keep believing? And she says, I will never give up on a soul. I will ever, others would. But she said, I will never give up on a soul. And she always maintained this vision. She was very strong, very disciplined. Don't get me wrong. But that was part of bringing out the best. But she always had this vision of belief in souls. She really understood what might be happening inside. She did her best to allow us to see our own blind spots. But she always maintained this vision of respect, of value, because she was so close to God. And that is God's natural vision. God never quits on a soul. Souls quit on themselves and blame it on God. We do a lot of things and blame it on God. But God does not ever quit on a soul, simply not in the makeup of that being, not possible. So cultivating that self-respect through spirituality, and then being able to play that part of pure vision, pure feelings, pure attitudes, in whatever gathering I'm in, even driving down the street. For that moment, I'm on a temporary team with the other drivers, and I have to have a really good attitude. So teams are happening all the time. Some are 5 seconds long, Some are 50 years long, but the same rules apply. Pure feelings, pure vision. So we'll end there, give you a chance. Didn't have much chance to share, I'm sorry. If there's anything you'd like to share, please feel free to do so.
I think that's, I appreciate the examples that you've given. There was one of an individual you knew at the YMCA who got in that bike accident.
Oh,
He was
yes.
dragged in, and I guess sometimes I wonder if we really know what that feels like to, I know as Pauline's saying, if you lose a limb or something until you're in those situations, or how much have you really actually gone into that experience? Because for something like that, for that individual, you really do have to reconstruct your sense of identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember early on in the study, it's like, what if I got a diagnosis? And you're trying to put yourself in my shoes until, and you're really trying to prepare, I suppose you can say, to really be, I guess, feel your sense of self regardless. So I was just thinking about that situation because, we're not this leg, we're not this limb, and I don't, to really actually be able to really go there. I appreciate what the original students were experiencing.
It's really heartbreaking sometimes. Like, it really sometimes moves me to tears when I think about what's happened to each soul, to humanity, that we basically have lost faith in ourselves. It's not a matter of whether or not I believe in God, but whether or not I believe in myself. And God might be able to help me achieve that. But we've really lost faith in ourselves. And what that looks like is, I want you to imagine a jewelry box with a beautiful jewel inside. And all we do is just decorate and ooh and ah over the jewelry box, totally ignoring the jewel inside. But what's the whole point? What's the most valuable thing is the jewel inside. But we're just oohing and awing over the box and decorating it and making it pretty and totally lost faith, recognition of the self. It's quite heartbreaking, actually. So it totally changes our concept of ourself, of course, and of God, when we realize the entire function of that being is to reconnect us, to get us to open the jewelry box and remember the self, and to give our efforts to taking care of the jewel inside. So that's where it begins, and then I'm able to be with others and not be distracted by their jewel boxes, but to really interact with the jewel inside. This is the essence of teamwork. And sometimes you say, oh, but they're acting this way and they're doing that. Don't be distracted by the jewel box. Right? Actions are part of the jewel box. I've got to connect to the jewel inside, this timeless, timeless being inside. So it's a very deep and I think critical issue to explore. So hopefully, I know it's the essence of spirituality, our spiritual study, but I know it was Daddy Genki's number one wish for every being on this planet, that they have the experience of who they are and who they belong to, and therefore, as Pauline was sharing, what is my true part or purpose? Not role, purpose. So I know it's 3:00. What I don't know is the topic next week. I never do. Shall I look it up quickly? I know I've put on the Canadian site, so let's see here. So we will have a little 2-second reflection to finish up here. And let me find for you. Inner fitness next week. I'm just trying to buy time while I look it up. is staying light. That sounds exciting. So staying light next week. So you can, as you remember the self during the week, the jewel inside the jewel box, perhaps you can add on a layer of reflecting on what staying light might be about. So we'll end with a couple of minutes of reflection here. As I sit here, totally in this moment, I experience myself looking out through the windows of the eyes on the outer physical world. And included in that outer physical world is this physical body. This body is made up of the same materials, the same elements as everything else out there. It belongs to the physical realm. It is temporary. Whereas I, the observer, I belong to the realm of spirituality. I am timeless. And how well do I know myself? I've gotten to know very well everything about the physical realm. But how well do I know myself? Really know myself as a timeless being. What journey have I been through? What is my true nature? What is my true home? I need to team up with the truth and learn about myself as a soul. Om Shanti. Thank you so much for joining today. It's been a great pleasure. Perhaps we'll see you next week. But a reminder that starting tomorrow, every Sunday this month, 6:30 to 7:30, Shivratri is celebrated this month in the Hindu calendar. But thank you, Sangeeta. But we like to explore the significance of these festivals. And Shivratri looks at this idea that God comes in the night, the darkest hour of humanity, and illuminating God's heart. What is the real personality of God? So every Sunday we'll take a different aspect exploring the personality of God. And of course, Inner Fitness continues, drop-in meditation, interview with a Raj Yogi. It's all there and on the website, so perhaps we'll see you. I just wanted to share as well, I believe that the Brahma Kumari Center in the UK is going to have a program, and it might be a public program, celebrating Daddy Janki. So when we have the details, perhaps we'll try to pass it on to those on our websites, not our websites, or our email list. So if you're not on our email list, just send us a note. I will type in the chat. Perhaps you already have our email address. I hope I get this right. Is it .org? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just send us an email if you want to be on our email list. I think they're just developing it now, but it might be quite inspiring. Yeah, and we'll send along with that the link to the movie Touching the Heart, so that you can get a chance perhaps to see a bit more, learn more about that soul who had such a beautiful relationship with herself, God, and humanity. So, until we meet again, Om Shanti. Have a lovely week.